Okay guys, what's up? It's Food and Night coming at you with a brand new recipe. Today we're going to be making pancakes with like an apple strudel kind of filling. Should be really nice. I'm just going to start off by listing the ingredients and the equipment. So here we've got like a handful of oats and maybe 2 handfuls of like plain flour, bread flour, or just like all-purpose flour, whatever. I like to use like half and half. I find like the oats just give it like, I don't know, like a bit of a thicker consistency, more protein. Yeah, I just like that. 1 egg, like a knob of butter. So I should say the egg, the oats and the flour and a little bit of salt and milk are for the pancake batter. And then this is butter, like a knob of butter, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Here is like half a teaspoon of allspice and half a teaspoon of cinnamon. This is a tiny piece of ginger, about the size of a thumbnail. And then this is like half a teaspoon of salt. Half will be for the apple filling and half will be for the pancakes. Here we've got 2 apples, green apples. I just prefer green apples because they're a bit firmer in texture and they stew better. Red apples I always find are a bit softer. You can use cooking apples, but like these are just normal like kind of apples you get in like a multi-pack, and I've done this recipe before and I find they come out just fine. This is like half a glass of milk. In volume, I'm not sure, maybe a cup. I kind of just eyeball things really, and you'll find that you will have to eyeball with this recipe just to kind of get the batter right. We will be using more butter and vegetable oil to fry the pancakes in, but you can use whichever oil you like. Here's the equipment that we'll be needing. So we have a knife just to chop the apples, like a pot just to stew, frying pan to fry the pancakes, chopping board to chop the apples, and then like a blender just to blend the oats into oat flour and to blend the pancake mixture. If you don't have a blender like this, you can use an immersion blender, and if you don't have either of those, like you can use like a fork and just like, or like a whisk and just whisk everything together, but obviously it's going to take you a longer time. So I'm going to start with the apples, just because it takes quite a while for it to stew down and soften, and for the flavors of the allspice and the cinnamon and ginger to infuse and develop. So yeah, we're going to start with that. Maybe take, I don't know, 20 minutes for it to cook. So let's start with that and then we'll move on to the batter afterwards. So with the apple, I'm just gonna find like a stable base and then just cut it like this, vertically. So I've reached the core here. I've reached the core, so I stopped cutting. I'm going to do the same on the other side. And then I'm going to kind of chop like this as well. So we're left with a core that looks like that, and you're just going to chuck this. You can keep it and like, I don't know, infuse it with some water, maybe into like a syrup or something, but I'm just going to put it in the bin. You've been eating apples wrong your whole life. Click here to find out how. I hate those videos. New food hack. Just put the apple up your bum to get all the nutrients. So because we're stewing the apple and we kind of want it to not dissolve but definitely soften and not be like really difficult to chew, we're going to cut the cubes quite fine. Not so fine that you can't tell that it's apple, but fine enough. And some of you might be thinking, why has he left the skin on? One, I couldn't be bothered to take the skin off, couldn't be asked. Two, there's a lot of nutritional value in the skin. But to contradict myself, I think it loses a lot of nutritional value when you cut the skin off. And when you cook the skin down, sorry. So, yeah, mainly because I'm lazy and I don't have a speed peeler. I'm not going to peel it like my granny would with a knife. That's some granny shit and I can't be bothered for that. And like as you can see with all the pieces, you just want to get the cubes. I know apples in different countries are like covered with wax and stuff, but like it's edible and I don't find it ruins the flavor profile too much. But with all of this, all these apples, and I'm gonna do the same with the second apple, and then I'm gonna add in the sugar, the cinnamon, the allspice, and all the other stuff. Okay guys, so I've got the 2 apples here cubed, and I'm going to add the other ingredients. So I'm going to put this little piece of ginger, that's enough to like flavour all the apples. And then I'm going to add the butter, like the knob of butter. I'm going to add all the brown sugar, this is about 2 tablespoons worth. And I prefer brown sugar just because like it has, I don't know, it's got more of a flavour to it, I find. Next, I'm going to add the allspice. And now the cinnamon. I've added a bit more cinnamon just because I quite like the flavour of cinnamon. I find it pairs really well with apple. And then I'm going to add like half the salt. So it's just a pinch really. Just because you've got all that sweetness, you want to kind of balance it as well. And I've got some here on the end of my spatula. I'm just going to scrape it in. And then we're going to take this to the gas and just heat it on a really low heat and stir everything in. So we're over the gas now and we just want a low heat. And I'm going to add a tiny bit of vegetable oil as well. And while I do like just using butter, it's sometimes very fattening. So I've added like a tablespoon of vegetable oil to that. And I'm just going to stir everything in. So the butter's here. At the bottom. And it's kind of hot. So I'm just going to grab a tea towel. Leave it like this. Give everything a stir. And you want to put it on a low heat, guys, because you don't want to burn the sugar straight away. The sugar will melt and dissolve and kind of help the apples dissolve. It will draw out moisture from the apples. So you're kind of going to do this motion a lot in the beginning just to get everything coated. You want an even distribution of the spices and the fat. So what will happen, the heat will melt everything and draw out moisture from the apples. So like it looks a bit dry at the moment, it doesn't look like anything will kind of like stew or saute, but it will get down. And towards the end we're going to add a tiny bit of water as well, just to kind of help with the syrup, because it will be apples like in a syrup of cinnamon and sugar and everything else we put in. And we'll fish out the little ginger piece in the end, so nobody kind of bites into that. We just want to impart the flavour, we don't really want to taste too much ginger. So we'll come back to this in, I don't know, 5 minutes. But obviously just keep stirring, make sure nothing burns in the process. Alright, so just returning to the apple. So as you can see, there's like liquid pooling at the bottom. Now this is a combination of the juice from the apple, the fructose, the glucose, the sugar, and kind of everything in between. Taking on a nice colour of the cinnamon and the allspice. The apples have definitely softened and become a bit more translucent, almost like when you saute onions. Obviously, like these are a lot sweeter than onions. And yeah, you just need to keep kind of agitating it, make sure like everything moves around and it doesn't burn. And just keep it on a low heat, because while it's sauteing, we can crack on with the pancake mix. So we're gonna let this go for another 5 minutes and come back to it and assess. So like I said earlier with the pancakes, I do like a 50-50 kind of oat to grain flour. So I don't have oat flour, so we're gonna make oat flour. So I'm just gonna add the oats by their own, and I'm just kind of whiz them around. I do tend to have a habit of getting stuck underneath the blade, so I might have to go in with a spatula and just kind of agitate them. You can do the same, or if your blender's good, then don't worry about it. So warning to your ears. Okay, so I've got oat flour now. It's very fine. Obviously, if you want to buy it from the shop, it's obviously going to be a lot more of a refined product and definitely a lot softer. But I like this consistency. I find it adds more of a bite to the pancake. So now I'm going to add the flour and the salt. Whiz that around, get everything combined. Coming back to the apples, we can see like there's definitely liquid, but it's more viscous now. So we've reduced a lot of the water. At this point, I'm still not happy with the texture of the apples. I'd like them a bit softer. So what I'm going to do is add maybe just a handful of water, just so we don't end up burning anything or caramelizing anything too much. So literally I'm just going to run the tap. Get a handful of water and just pop it in. Give it a stir around. And what you find in pots like this, especially when you're working with sugar, sugar will caramelize on the edges of the pot, like creating almost a fond, like with chicken or beef or pork when you cook with that. So you can actually take the water and just run it up the sides, and kind of put some of that fond back into the syrup. And I'll probably let these sit for another 10 minutes now, and then after that they'll be ready. What water is going to help do is just help it stew and boil down and really soften up the apples. To the blender, I can see I've made a lot of mess. I'm going to take the lid off, like so. You can see inside, it's all kind of one colour of flour now. And it's all around the edges, so we need a spatula to kind of push that down and incorporate the milk and egg, which are the next steps. So I'm literally just going to crack the egg here and pop it in. And the worst thing possible, some shell went in. Oh, now I've got to fish that out, great. So I managed to fish out the shell. Obviously, if you want some extra calcium, you can always leave it in. Got the egg in there, and I'm just going to blend it. Now I'm going to add some of the milk bit by bit and push the sides in of the flour, and you should be able to see the batter start to form. You can see I've pushed the sides in, and the batter's starting to form. I've added a little bit of milk and you're seeing a lot more air bubbles. So I'm gonna add the rest of the milk. Just like this. And whiz this up, and then I'll see what the texture is at the end. So this is the kind of consistency we want. This lump is just from the side, it's not actually from the batter. But it's quite a runny, aerated batter. And we're gonna put this in the fridge for like half an hour just to kind of almost set, and like it will definitely pour better when we're ready to cook it. Okay, so with the apples, I'm quite happy with the opacity and the texture is very soft, and the syrup, there's not so much syrup now, so it's reduced a lot, but it's still enough to keep the pancake kind of juicy and the filling kind of juicy. So you can turn the temperature off and just leave it on the side to let it cool down. Okay guys, for this part, we are going to start cooking the pancakes. So, kind of like medium-low heat, and I like to add a little bit of vegetable oil. That's like a teaspoon. And then like a tiny bit of butter, this amount and this thin. And I find like if you use just butter, it will go brown really quickly and sort of burn. And if you use just oil, you're kind of missing out on the buttery flavour. So you want to spread that all over the pan. I mean, this is a non-stick pan, but still it's nice to use a bit of like lubrication for the pan. Now we're going to get our pancake mix out of the fridge, and you're just going to pour a little bit, and you're going to want to like turn the pan around without filling any empty spaces in. And we're going to let this cook. So it always depends really, depends on your batter, depends on the thickness, how much you've poured, and the heat source you're using. But what you want to look for are like tiny little bubbles to let you know when to flip it. So I think I could have even added a tiny bit more oil, but now is definitely too early. Like you can go around the sides and kind of check. It's starting to break away just a tiny bit on the sides, but I can feel like there's a bit of resistance. So now is not the time. And I'm not really seeing any little bubbles here on the inside. So this is quite a thin batter. Like if you want to use a thicker batter, that's fine, no problem. Let's try and see what happens. So actually I can shake it and it's almost all coming loose. There's a bit here somewhere. Okay, I can feel that's almost ready. And you can start to see like kind of air bubbles forming, like pockets. So around the edges here as well, it's kind of getting brown. Going for like a zoom, getting kind of brown there. And here you're seeing tiny little air bubbles. So it's telling me it's kind of ready to flip. Now you can do it with a spatula, or if you're feeling it, you're feeling yourself, feeling good, give it a little shake like this. Not like that. Turn it back over. And we're gonna flip it. So that failed completely. Now we have to go in and just give it a little. But hey, that always happens the first time, you know, you need practice. Next one we're gonna get. I will definitely get a flip on camera. So guys, I've got the second pancake on the go. And I've got this pancake just kind of cooling off on the plate. So you're gonna wanna add your apple filling towards like the top third. And like 1 tablespoon is enough really. I'm gonna add a tiny bit more. But because we're gonna like roll it thin, it's gonna like spread out. So just like this, grab this part, almost like a burrito, you know, you're gonna roll it out, and as you roll it out, it's kind of gonna spread towards the edges. I'm gonna let that sit there. So I'm feeling a bit better about this pancake. I'm gonna try and flip it, see how it goes. So it's nice and lube, nice and slippy. One kind of handed motion, let's go. Yeah boy! Yeah boy! So you can see like it's quite cooked on this side, but this side is not really. That's because like the flame is a little bit uneven. It looks fine to the camera, but I know myself it's a bit uneven. So, I mean this is hot, but I'm just gonna give it a little turn. Pancake number 2. Okay, so we got our pancakes done and they're filled with apple. And I'm just gonna add like a bit of powdered sugar on top for decoration. Okay, so here it is guys, here's the finished product. We got our 3 pancakes with the apple filling. Got some apple filling on the side because there's no more pancakes. And I didn't really show it in the video, but I made some bacon. Like 3 slices of smoky bacon. I figured I wanted a bit more protein, and it goes, you know, pork and apple go really well together. So yeah, I'm gonna go for this one. This is like the one that is the most warmest. So do it like this, cross section action. So you can see inside, it's almost like a, I don't know, it's almost like an apple pie from McDonald's, or like a sort of like cinnamon roll kind of thing, but with apple inside. So let's get a really decent piece of that. So you can kind of see like the little flecks of allspice, of cinnamon, and the apple's almost translucent. Really nice, very thin pancake. That's how, like, you know, I like them. I don't really like the American style. I prefer like this kind of French style. Almost like a crepe really. So let's give it a try. Very soft pancake. It's airy from all the whizzing in the blender. Yeah, very soft, but the edges are a little bit crispy, which is nice. It's like a textural contrast. The apples are very, very soft. They've been reduced down really, really well. The skin being there doesn't make a difference at all. Definitely the flavors of cinnamon coming through. Allspice. It's almost like, it's really close to being like Christmassy. Like if you add nutmeg and clove and maybe star anise, some orange, you almost get kind of Christmassy flavors of mulled wine. But this is really nice. It's not quite there in terms of the mulled wine, but yeah, it's really nice. Like I said before, you can use like eating apples or cooking apples. For me, it really doesn't make a difference. I think eating apples are like more widely available and they taste just as good, but stick with the green ones, not the red ones. So I'm gonna get like a mouthful of everything now. Yeah, That is it. That is it. That is what you want. Wow. So when I made this before, I don't normally make it with bacon. I just have like some nuts on the side just for protein or whatever. But wow, the bacon adds a new dimension to it completely. It adds like a saltiness, a greasiness, like the fat is really nice. I mean, this is quite a high fat dish. There's a lot of butter and oil in the pancakes. So, and there's butter in the apples and oil as well. So you can't be making this every day, but the flavor combination here, just wow, it works so well. The saltiness, the sweetness, and then you've got the kind of undertone of the cinnamon, the nutmeg, and the ginger. Let's get a bit more. Let's bang this out. That works so well. Remember to take the ginger piece out of the apple, guys, as well. Especially if you're serving it to guests, you don't want anyone to bite down on a strong piece of ginger. Although it probably tastes quite nice. But yeah, guys, if you give this one a go, let me know in the comments. And I highly recommend this one. It's really nice, good for breakfast or lunch, or if you're cooking for someone, you want to impress them. Like with your own apple, it's kind of like your own apple sauce, really. You know, it's a good way. So yeah, give it a go and let me know. I will catch you on the next video. Bye bye, guys. Thanks for watching.